So, what's it like having the hottest restaurant in the city? Well, today we're about to find out. We're here in downtown St. Petersburg at Fortu, and you know, if you try to get a reservation here, just how difficult it can be. Bobby had to call me personally just to get a reservation here. It is that hot right now, and we're gonna hear more about it. We're meeting with Cory Saffran today, who is the managing partner, and we're gonna meet with his head chef as well. So come along for the ride.
Off a homegrown good cause coming post haste, no more prolong. Jeez, I'm trying to get paid at the most. See it up close, don't freeze. I'm at the more G's. Trying to get paid, you know it's all still part of the game. They running 5 drills. I'm off.
Cory
Sterling, good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Welcome.
Pleasure. It's been a little while.
Yeah, how have you been?
Oh man, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me out today.
Absolutely.
I know it's a Monday and you guys are not open on Mondays, but
Nope.
I do appreciate you making the time for me.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome, man. So what's it like having the hottest restaurant in the city?
It's a lot of work, a lot of reward, but a lot of stress. You know, it's the restaurant industry is it's a challenge,
Yeah.
to say the least.
And how long have you guys been open now?
Officially, we opened, I want to say December 5th was the first day, but we did a soft opening in November.
Okay.
So going on, 5.5 months.
So all through the growing pains now?
You could say that. Yeah, I mean, we're still working through iterations of the menu, service, but all in all, we're pretty happy. Yeah, we're going into the summer, so that's our new hurdle to cross, but we'll see how that goes.
Cool. You want to have a quick seat with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we won't have any drinks today since it's a Monday, but
No.
I will definitely be back sometime soon to taste out this drink menu you guys have here because it looks pretty nice.
Yeah, the cocktails are fantastic. We used a mixologist for them, and of all the feedback we've received, the cocktails have definitely been a showstopper. They're pretty phenomenal.
Awesome. So for somebody who wants to start a restaurant, what would you say the most important factor is?
Know your concept and know the market. Definitely know what you're aiming to be by way of service, food quality, kind of from start to finish, but also know what the market desires. If you're going into a market that has, for Asian, for example, if we had 5 high-end Asian restaurants near us, it's probably not the right choice. Even if you're in a good location, competition's a good thing, but you don't want to oversaturate the market.
So you think really at the end of the day, it's food driven first and foremost? I mean, it is a restaurant.
Yeah, I would say food is probably 65, 70%, and then the other, 25, 30, 35% is a mixture of the cocktail, the beverage program, ambiance, and service. I think service may weigh a little bit higher on that. People are very specific on what they're looking for, and if you have poor service delivery, if the service is delayed, if the management team doesn't resolve issues for guests correctly and efficiently, then your food can be great, but the restaurant won't survive because you really need the all-around package from entrance to exit.
Talk about that management piece a little bit more, because I think that that's something that maybe people don't understand when they're they're an entrepreneur, they have a dream of being a restaurateur.
Sure.
And they just think, hey, I'm just going to open a bar and it's just going to be successful. And then they figure out that management piece is an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest stressors pre-opening, was finding the right general manager to balance service delivery, staff morale. Restaurants, staff morale is really difficult, especially even pre-COVID, but coming out of COVID, the hit that the industry took, staffing is really difficult. And if you don't have a good manager, you'll have consistent turnover. And when you have consistent turnover, you spend a lot of money on training, you spend a lot of money on guest recovery, just comping items, for example, because the staff don't have the right leadership. So when you have a good manager, they set the right tone for the restaurant, and that then trickles down to the customer by way of greeting from the server, water refills from the back server. All of those things are important, but it all starts at the management level. And then obviously, if you have 100% guest satisfaction, you're doing something I don't know what you're doing. Paying your guests, probably. But guests are going to have issues. But if the manager and the assistant manager, or whatever your structure is does a good job touching tables, dealing with guest issues, you can create your most loyal guests recovering from issues by turning around their experience, apologizing, inviting them back, remembering them. That's another key thing of a manager, is remembering your locals, your repeat customers. So managers are some of the most important parts of a restaurant.
What makes the restaurant industry so tough? Why do so many restaurants fail?
A lot of people that get into the restaurant industry have never worked in the restaurant industry, so they don't understand that it's not as easy as printing a menu, having some tables and chairs, hiring people, and cooking food. There are so many overheads with operating a restaurant that if you don't have cost control on food, labor, and beverage to some extent, you're going to lose money. You won't be able to pay bills, you won't be able to pay staff, and you'll fail and close up shop. Food costs being the number one issue, obviously. People either don't understand the cost of goods that they're selling, and they think, I know at the grocery store food costs this, so I'll sell it for this, but they don't realize that when you manufacture your menu and you menu engineer, there are more components that go into the plating. So you have your food, you have your sauce, you have your starch and vegetables on it. And if you run too high of a food cost, if you think of it, for example, if you run a 50% food cost, that's astronomical. So every dollar that you make in revenue, 50 cents right away is out the door. So now you have 50 cents of profit left. You have to pay staff. You have to pay for beverage. You have to pay for linen service for your napkins. If you use paper napkins, you have to pay for paper napkins. You have to pay for your electricity bills, your energy, your rent. So there are so many overheads that it's tough to make a profit. Labor control would be the next one. If you are understaffed, your reviews will suffer, your guest count will go down. So then if you have high margins on your operation, you're not going to make money. And if you overstaff, you're not going to make money. So there's a fine balance of all of the pieces of a restaurant, and people just generally don't have it worked out well enough that they turn the profit they're looking for. So a lot of times restaurants may break even, but it's a lot of work to break even.
So let's talk about the build out in here, because obviously this restaurant is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
So if somebody wanted something like this for their own restaurant, how do you go about designing something like this?
It was a labor of love. The design was, I would say, 99% Sean. He was taking feedback from the team, the managing partners, but he really drove it himself. We had an architect that did some renderings based off what Sean was bringing to the table. We used some feedback from designers that kind of freelanced, but it was a lot of picking from inspiration that he really wanted to see in the space. We would build things, and it didn't look what he was desiring it to look as, and then we would tear it down and change it. So there were not many iterations of design once we started construction, but we had multiple iterations of renderings that went out to the public. We were in, I think, Tampa Bay Times with one rendering, and then we had some local Instagram handles that put out other renderings. And so when we ended up opening, it was kind of a fresh look. I think the renderings were all sexy, but I do think the final product is the best iteration of it. So I think people were pleasantly surprised. But it was really just kind of picking and choosing other inspirations. And so when we get feedback that we are resembling a restaurant in Miami or Los Angeles or New York, those are kind of the three that we've heard a few times. It's funny because we traveled to Miami to eat at some restaurants. He lived in LA for a while, and New York is the other kind of, obviously it's New York. So it was funny to see, it's good to see that feedback and see that the mark was hit.
Approximately, if you wanted your restaurant to look like this, what would it cost you?
I would say you'd want to start with at least $2 million. I think we used some friends, family, not really family, more friends, and found some really valuable resources that helped us save on some of the funding. But it's a sizable project. Now this one was in an older building, and when we opened up some walls and the ceilings, we found some surprises that drove the dollar value up. But I would say $2 million is a healthy number, and I don't know what that is per square foot. It's about, this restaurant space is $4,000 to $5,000 with the kitchen. But it was a lot of work.
So if you're building a menu, you're a restaurant owner, a potential restaurant owner.
Sure.
Where's your highest ROI?
It's really hard to say. If you have a good steak program, you can do a pretty sizable markup on steak that's fair, that's approachable, that is in line with your competition, that's in line with what people expect to pay for steak. So you can make a good return on steak. Now the thing that I've always explained to other people that I've worked for, it's not always about the return on that. It's about the return, but it's not about the margin necessarily. I would always rather sell a $1,000 bottle of wine for a 50% beverage cost, for example, because then I'm bringing $500. So if I paid $500 and I sell it for $1,000, I'm bringing $500 to the bank. Whereas I could buy a bottle of wine for $10. If I can get someone to buy it for $100, that's only a 10% cost, but I'm only taking $90 to the bank. So if you have high value items, even if your margin is high on those, you still make more money at the end of the day if it costs the same production for staffing, for labor, et cetera. So there's multiple ways to look at it.
Yeah, it doesn't cost more for the waiter to bring out the $500 bottle versus the $10 bottle, right?
No, they're excited about it. Usually you get a better tip on that. So there's multiple ways, whether it's high margin or high return on it.
Well, speaking of steak, I think I smell some on the grill right now, and I'm getting hungry.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a taste test?
Yeah, our chef, one of the managing partners, Chef Nate, is here, and he will show you what he's cooking.
Let's do it.
It's going back.
So is this difficult for the servers, having to come up and down the stairs with full plates?
They've done a great job. Our food runners have really worked with the tight space. That was a concern of mine.
Yeah.
But no, it hasn't really been any issues. And we head into our kitchen, which is very crowded and small, and it's pretty impressive what the team can do on a busy weekend night.
Absolutely, because how many people would you say you're serving on a Friday night, for example?
We've done up to 400.
400?
Yeah, our average is probably, thank you, Chef, 422.
422, okay.
But our average on a Friday and Saturday is probably around 320 right now.
And so that's about 320 dinners, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, with
at
each
some
dinner,
capacity, either an appetizer and a drink or a full experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you'd say the average ticket price is how much?
Anywhere from 75 to 100, depending on if you're sitting at the bar having apps or if you're dining at a table. And that's per guest.
Sure.
So ticket price depends on how many guest covers we call them. So
Yep.
2 people are usually spending, with tip and tax, $250, around $300 or so. But
Awesome.
we have happy diners, so I think it's worth the money.
That's what it's all about. All right, so let's meet Chef Nate. Nate, pleasure to meet you.
Awesome, you as well.
Yes, sir. All
Good to
right,
see
so
you.
what are we going to be cooking today?
So right here is one of our signature steaks. It's our yuzu kosho rubbed domestic, which is American prime strip steak.
Okay.
So-
and how many different cuts do you guys offer here?
So on every week it changes. So usually we try to stick to at least 6 or 7. You know,
Okay.
we have a couple signatures that stay, but based on availability, seasonality, and things like that, we change the menu weekly. So
Sure.
it changes quite often.
And what's the most popular?
Our most popular right now is definitely our 14-ounce miso aged Wagyu ribeye.
Okay.
So ribeye has become the
Yeah.
dominant steak over the last decade or so.
And especially with the miso Wagyu, I mean,
Yeah.
when you hear that, that means dollar signs if you don't know.
So we cover the entire spectrum of the BMS rating, which
Sure.
is the rating that grades the intramuscular fat of all the steaks. So we go everywhere from, you know, our domestic strip, which is your BMS 4 or, you know, peaking at 5, all the way up to your Japanese A5 BMS 12, which I'll show you in a little bit, one of our strip steaks for the A5 Wagyu.
Awesome. So, all right, you're going to slap this on the grill here. When you go to grill a steak, what's the most important thing for you?
So as you notice and you look at our grill, we don't have the thin, pointy, cute grates on our grill. What we're looking for is surface contact. We want that caramelization, that Maillard reaction, which is the browning of the sugars and the proteins on the outside of the steak. So our big goal is that crisp outside and nice rare to medium rare center.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to sit back and let you cook.
Great, sounds good.
All right, Chef Nate.
Awesome.
So what do you have for us here?
So this is our signature ribeye steak. It's a BMS 9 Australian ribeye. And what we do is when we get it in, we wash it for 3 days in Japanese Suntory whiskey. Once we dry it off after those 3 days, we rub it in black and green peppercorn, and then it's dried for 35 days. So here we have before it's cooked, after it's been aged, there's a little discoloration from the aging process, which is just consolidating all those flavors and making it a much more intense, beefy flavor on top of an already awesome cut.
And this is the signature steak here at Fortu.
Correct. It changes on a rolling weekly basis. So obviously we know, a month ahead of time because we're trying to make sure our signature steak has that intense flavors, something different that really sets it apart from what's available in today's market, and just make sure it's altogether the best possible steak we can get week in and week out.
So talk to me a little bit about the presentation of the steak here and how it's plated. What are these other items that are here?
Yeah, so other things that change really, regularly based on seasonal availability. This week we've got fresh wasabi, so all the wasabi that we're used to is kind of a powdered green mixture that gets mixed with water and served with sushi. Fresh wasabi is in the horseradish family. It's very difficult to cultivate. So this is flown in from Japan. We have some different pickled vegetables. We have a savory pickled eggplant with some pickled peppers, and then black garlic, which is garlic that's been fermented over the course of a few months. And we use just a little bit of salt and sugar and soy sauce to make it into a really nice, robust kind of steak sauce. That's a signature addition to our steaks.
All right, so what's the best way to eat this?
Just diving in, so when we get it, we make sure that we cut out all the internal fat, so all you have is that good marbling and beef.
Sure.
So we have, your lean eye cut, and then your spinellus outside, or your fattier part that the ribeye is really known for. So it really depends on how you like to do it, but all of our steaks are served cut so that they're shareable. Everything at Fortu is meant to be shared with the table. So it's really just dive in and try all the different flavors.
All right, now I know this isn't the steak that we were going to try today, but is this edible right now? Can I try this?
So this is presentation. It's at about room temperature. I have the strip back there. I can bring out and slice if you really want to. If you want to try the strip that I cooked, just.
Oh, let's try them both.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and give this a try here.
Yeah, let's dive
I'm
in.
just gonna grab one of these pieces. And this is what sauce is this again?
It's our black garlic sauce.
Black garlic sauce.
So
All
it's
right.
a little sweet, a little salty, and very umami, very rich.
That's very good.
That's wild, right? All the flavors.
That is incredibly,
texture. Yeah.
incredibly good. This sauce especially, didn't know how it was gonna go with steak. Phenomenal.
Right.
Even at room temp, this is really, really good steak.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right, so now I'm getting hungry. Now we gotta try some more.
Definitely.
right.
Let me get in the back. I'll slice up that strip we cooked earlier.
All right, so what do we have here?
Back one more time. So this is a domestic prime steak that we marinate with yuzu kosho. Yuzu kosho is kind of an aftermath. Once they squeeze the yuzu juice, they take the rind of the yuzu and they pickle it with some peppers and kind of make like a hot marmalade with it. So instead of black pepper, we grind that up and cure this steak for 2 days in that yuzu kosho to infuse it with that citrusy pepper.
Yeah.
That way we just need to season with a little kosher salt. And we've got it served with a little bit of pickled daikon and some pickled shishito peppers.
All right.
Kind of give a really good balance, sweet and sour with the savory.
Well, let's give it a shot.
Climb
See
in.
how it is. All right.
It's
That
wild.
was really good.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
little, you can like the salt that's on top, perfect with that beefy flavor. This one tastes more like a traditional steak.
Sure.
You know?
So we like to have all sorts of different offerings here, and as we said, menu constantly changes, but what won't change is our approach to food, and it's simple and it's clean, but it's also different, and we want to make sure that we always have something that is approachable, but also not an offering that folks are used to. So flavor-wise, we have an orange chicken, but we incorporate a little chili into it, and we use fresh oranges, and it's not your typical sugary, intense, soggy, you know, sort of chicken. It's a nice light tempura, crispy with a more citrusy, acidic chicken orange flavor. Adding something with a little bit of crunch to it, give it a little texture, a little sweetness, a little spice.
Remind me what this is again?
That's a pickled daikon.
Pickled daikon.
Yeah, so it's very traditional in like hand rolls and some traditional sushi items. So that's something that we bring in from Japan and just kind of cut it and let it dress our steaks, give it a little sweetness.
And again,
crisp.
not something that I would necessarily think to put on my steak at home.
Right.
But it goes fantastically with what's presented here.
Sure.
It is a really well put together dish. So, all right. I did hear that you are going to have a little extra surprise for us.
Yeah, we
because you
wanted to have a
one
little
more dish.
sweet bite for you, so we're gonna show you our ube cheesecake.
All right, let's do that.
Awesome, great. I'll be right back.
All right. Wow. This is beautiful. So what is this that we're looking at right now?
This is our ube cheesecake. Ube is kind of a Central Pacific island sweet potato. It's very purple, it's very soft, very delicate. It doesn't travel well, so we normally get it in forms of like an ube extract or a compound, and then we take that and use it as our flavoring for our cheesecake. So it's very similar to almost like a sweetness and almost a flavor of like a shortbread. It has almost a cookie flavor to it. So we finish it with just kind of a cinnamon shortbread crust and then a little bit of peanut crunch around the outside of the cheesecake and a nice fresh whipped cream.
All right, well, I am a dessert guy, so
Awesome, great.
I'm looking forward to this. A lot of times when I go to a restaurant, I am looking forward to the dessert from the minute I sit down, so.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to your reaction. It's a much lighter cheesecake than a traditional New York and things like that.
That is much lighter.
Very light, not too sweet. We have, you know, a lot of aggressive flavors in our cuisine and our food, so we want to make sure that our desserts and our finish is more refreshing than it is another intense sugary bite.
There's a type of like candy bar that it's giving me the feeling of, and I can't remember what the name of the candy bar is right now, but it's like right on the tip of my tongue. I'm sure as soon as we're done here, it'll come to me, but this is really good.
Awesome.
And this is definitely a different flavor profile. You said it's sweet potato,
Right.
Which is something that you would not necessarily imagine to be purple, first of all, and in this dish, but it works.
So if you spend a lot of time in the air, a lot of airlines have taken on a cookie cracker, the Biscoff. So the Biscoff cookie is part of the layer in the bottom. It gives it that cinnamon texture.
And is this a
nice
cream cheese
flavor.
on top?
It's just a light whipped cream, just
Light
simple
whipped cream, okay.
unglazed cream, yep.
Well, I say that you have a stellar menu, my friend.
Wonderful.
From start to finish, I'm very impressed. I'm gonna let these guys get out of here so I can eat in peace.
Perfect.
Now, but thank you again for showing us around.
Awesome.
And
Wonderful
it's really a
meeting you.
pleasure.
Let me know if I can help you with anything else.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that is the latest episode of Sterling SBA. We met with Fortu today. We met with Chef Nate and Cory Saffran, the managing partner. They talked about the restaurant business, and then Nate was nice enough to cook us up some steak and let us sample their ube dessert. So stay tuned for what's next, because we got a lot of cool stuff coming your way.